thought we would look at some issues of Shonen Sunday, starting with this issue, 1987, Volume 36. This is the first volume to feature Ranma 1/2. Before we get into that, let's see what some of the other magazines, the rival magazines to Shonen Sunday, were publishing this same week. We'll start with Shonen Magazine. These titles are probably not as familiar to Western audiences as what we'll see in Jump. This first one is Ashita Tinki ni Naare. This is by Tetsuya Chiba, most famous for Ashita no Joe. Bari Bari Densetsu. We also have George Morikawa. This is before he did Hajime no Ippo, this brief manga. Ippo is about a year and a half away from debuting in magazine and is still running today. In Shonen Jump at the time, many of these titles will not need any introduction. City Hunter was running. Captain Tsubasa was appearing. Kimaguri Orange Road, still very famous. Fist of the North Star, of course, and Dragon Ball, all running. By this point in time, Shonen Sunday had fallen to third place. Its highest circulation was in 1983. By 1987, it's fallen behind Magazine. And we can compare those numbers to today. Of course, print media has drastically reduced since the 1980s when this magazine originally came out. Now let's look at the first chapter of Ranma 1/2. Takahashi had ended Urusei Yatsura and Meizane Koku in January and April of 1987. 5 months later, she's beginning Ranma 1/2. The watercolor pages that we see here, these have not really ever been reproduced. We've made some videos capturing her artwork, her color artwork. Here we see some early Ranma merchandise. This would have been the very first Ranma merchandise. It was already on sale alongside this first chapter. We see a Mitsuru Adachi board game and a Doraemon board game as well. We also see some firearms. This was a controversy in Shonen Sunday in 1968. Firearms, or replica firearms, were sold around this particular manga, Akatsuki Combat Squadron, and parents' groups had protested military items being sold in the 60s. Here we see the bicolor pages, or the bichrome pages, or the red tint pages, as we sometimes call them. These were predecessors to full-color pages. By the 1990s, all of the shonen magazines have phased these out, but they were still regularly featured in the 1980s, in the late 1980s, when this was originally made. By the time of Inuyasha, that's the end of the red tint or the bichrome pages. Akane's long hair, very present in this first chapter. We have a quote here that I'm sharing on screen about how Takahashi felt she didn't really know the character of Akane until she had the opportunity to cut her hair, and how that really helped her get a handle on who the character was and understand the character better. So that was not something that was originally planned. And now we'll take a look at Mitsuru Adachi's Rough. An unusual manga for him, focuses on swimming rather than baseball. Shonen Sunday had recently acquired a new editor-in-chief, Ginori Kumagai, at this time, just about 2 months prior to this issue being published. Kumagai would eventually decide to focus on veteran artists. He brings Ryoichi Kagami back to do Mai. Shotaro Ishinomori comes back. Here we see the Rough live-action drama. So even though this is perhaps one of Adachi's less notable series, it does have a live-action drama, so it has fans, certainly, as all of his work does. Here we have Just Meat by Hidenori Hara, which will ultimately run for 19 volumes. Hara wins the Shogakukan Manga Award in the Shonen category this year in 1987 when this came out. The story focuses on 9 freshmen who join the baseball team and aim for Koshien, the high school baseball finals, sort of the World Series of high school baseball in Japan. At the time, nearly everything in Shonen Sunday was fairly new. Almost everything was in the 20 to 70 chapter range. Just Meat, this series, and BB, which we'll see in a moment, were closer to the 100 chapter range by this point, so they were well established as they were cycling into a new editor and a lot of fresh titles taking on the reins of the magazine. Next we have Bucchigiri, not to be confused with the anime from 2023 of the same name. This manga, Bucchigiri, is a motorcycle gang / baseball manga by the mangaka Yu Nakahara. Nakahara, despite his name, is actually two individuals, two friends, Hideki Nakazawa and Hiroyuki Tajima, who continue to work together to this day. They predominantly produce baseball manga. Bucchigiri had a series of OVAs in the late 1980s into the early 1990s, as we see on the screen there. And their art style is unique, very clean, very polished, and was a mainstay of the sort of late 1980s in Shonen Sunday alongside Ranma 1/2. Lots of baseball manga were very popular at this time period. Very dynamic artwork, as we can see here. This is the boxing manga, BB, short for Burning Blood, by Osamu Ishiwata, which ran from 1985 to 1991. This series actually won the 38th Shogakukan Manga Award in 1988 and deals with the story of a saxophonist who finds himself pulled into the boxing underworld. Since 2006, Ishiwata has been working on a bicycle racing manga called Odds that initially started in Young Sunday before that magazine went out of business. A great illustrator, very dynamic spreads. Here's some of the color illustration work for BB. This was followed by another series in Shonen Sunday called Love, which we see here, that deals with the protagonist's daughter, a tennis manga of all things. And so Bucchigiri and BB both filling that sort of range of hit manga in Shonen Sunday alongside Ranma 1/2, which ultimately ran longer than they did. They both concluded before Ranma. Here we see some of the video games being advertised at the time: Majo Densetsu 2, Daimashiko Garius, and then on the next page here we will also see Highway Star, better known in the West as Rad Racer. Some more advertising here, some prizes being given away. And then we see Ryoji Ryuzaki's 1986 to 1988 9-volume manga, Tosho Boy. Tosho Boy deals with a baseball player, which was again a popular subject matter in Shonen Sunday at this time, who eventually transitions into the world of professional wrestling. It's said that Tatsumi Fujinami's Dragon Sleeper hold signature move supposedly originated in this manga, and this was where he got the idea for the famous actual pro wrestling move from. After Tosho Boy, Ryuzaki did Bakure Ippei, which was also in Shonen Sunday. That was from 1989 to 1990. Before that, he had been in Jump and Magazine as well. I flipped past an ad for the Meizanikoku Omoide portfolio set and Caravan Kid, and then we have a manga called Kotton Tetsumaru by Tetsuo Aoki. Aoki is probably best known for Higa Hashiru, which he wrote for Super Jump in 1992 to 1998. He eventually moves on to seinen manga and historical manga, and interestingly enough, something you don't hear very much about, manga textbooks on various subjects. This next series is just a few pages each week. It's by the mangaka Masahiro Kikuni, who would become more well-known for Heartbroken Angels, which will eventually run in Young Sunday. 4-panel gag strips, very tonally different from what he was doing here, or at least in terms of the format. So his glory days were ahead of him from this. Then we move to Ryu, a post-apocalyptic manga, Japan after nuclear warfare decimated it. The hero of this is from the modern world. He fell into the school swimming pool, and then when he woke up, he was in this post-apocalyptic world and is fated to become the savior of this violent and very sort of Fist of the North Star inspired sort of landscape. After that, we have Bokura wa Ruto-san. Not much to say about this. This is by Satoru Matsumura. It only ran for 7 chapters, so a very short manga before it was likely, I assume, canceled. A romantic comedy, pretty standard for the time. Very little written about this series, not tremendously well remembered, but series came and went in those days, just like today. However, a series that was much more memorable, Aozora Shotte, by Hideki Mori, ran from 1987 to 1991. It was 24 volumes. This was a golf manga following the character Kazuya Tobita. Initially, it's a romantic comedy. It eventually becomes more of a serious golf manga as the series goes on. A very grounded approach, not any sort of magical trick shots and things like that compared to other manga. Golf manga were popular at the time. We saw Tetsuya Chiba's earlier series as well. Koshien ga Suki, this is by Toshiyuki Mutsu, only 5 chapters, so a very short series. It did not run for very long. Then we have Happi Chokuzen. This one is by Katsuaki, who is a noted manga artist in the West, probably best known for Futari Ecchi and his manga adaptation of The Vision of Escaflowne, which was published in English in the late 1990s or early 2000s. Nice art style, again, very much kind of the romantic comedy style that was popular at the time. His Futari Ecchi series is incredibly long, 90 volumes, so that really becomes his kind of iconic work. Next we have one of the mainstays of Shonen Sunday from the 1980s, Motoko Murakami. Murakami won the Shogakukan Manga Award twice, the Kodansha Manga Award, the Osamu Tezuka Cultural Prize. He had started his career in Shonen Sunday with this series, Musashi no Ken. Earlier than that, he had done Akai Pegasus, this Formula One manga, which he would have a sequel to after concluding Kazuyo Nuke, the series we're looking at now. Eventually, he goes to Big Comic Original, where he creates Ron, a long-running historical manga, which he has recently crowdfunded the English translation for, and that recently concluded just a year ago or so. Some more advertising here, and then we move into Kazuhiko Shimamoto, still a very famous, iconic manga artist, and his series Totsugeki Wolf, not one of his better-known series, 3 volumes, mostly from 1987. He will go on to have a number of other hot-blooded stories, such as Blazing Transfer Student, Ao Hono, known as Blue Blazes. He writes a lot about the manga industry itself. He's also a friend of Rumiko Takahashi. And then, lastly, we have Smile for Me. This one is by Kei Satomi. It ran for 15 volumes from 1987 to 1989. The main character is Mi. She is trying to become a successful photographer. Satomi, the creator of this, is only credited as the author on this series. The second half was ghostwritten by Tetsuya Kurosawa, who published a photo book, a pretty interesting photo book recently, on the scant few remaining pornographic vending machines in Japan and the people who solicit them and refill them. The table of contents here, and that wraps up our look at this issue of Shonen Sunday, the first issue featuring Ranma 1/2, the iconic Ranma 1/2. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching.